Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is, well, it's pretty laser-focused on something that's just not theoretical anymore. We're talking about AI-driven job displacement.
Exactly. For years, it was always this future risk, right? Something on the horizon.
Right, but the future is here, and it is causing, truly massive and immediate disruption.
And that's really the crux of it. We're past the point of asking if jobs will go away. We're now measuring how many and how fast.
So that's what we're going to do. We'll analyze the scale of it all, the corporate cuts, the projections, and then we're going to dive deep into the biggest policy idea on the table for this.
Universal basic income.
UBI.
Exactly. But first, let's start with a reality check. Because if you think this is still a distant problem, you have to hear this data point from MIT.
It's a really important one.
Their recent analysis found that AI can, technically, already replace 11.7% of the entire U.S. labor market. That's not a projection for 2030. That's today. And 11.7%. It sounds like a specific number, but what it represents is up to $1.2 trillion in wages. And look at where it's hitting.
Not the jobs people expected.
No. Finance, healthcare, professional services. These are the high-skill, cognitive roles that, people thought were safe. The ones you go to college for 4, 6, 8 years to get.
And you can see it happening in the headlines. Just in the last year, you've got Salesforce, Walmart, Paramount, UPS, YouTube.
The list goes on.
It does. And they're all specifically saying it's because of AI, because of efficiency. We're pushing toward nearly 1 million jobs cut nationwide already, just in this transition. It's happening so much faster than anyone thought.
The speed of adoption, that is what's making this so urgent. When people hear automation, they still, I think, picture a robot arm in a factory.
Right, building a car.
Exactly. But the corporate shift is so much broader now.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because we do have the classic automation targets, but look at logistics. Yeah. Right now, we have sources reporting Amazon is on the verge of replacing 600,000 warehouse workers.
600,000. And their goal, reportedly, is to automate 75% of their operations.
That's a staggering figure.
It is, because Amazon is the bellwether. If they hit 75%, every single one of their competitors has to follow or they'll be left behind. That's a tidal weight of displacement across one industry.
And then you have the other side of it, the white-collar displacement, which has always been this sort of sleeper threat. Ford's CEO is on the record projecting that AI could eventually replace half of all their white-collar workers. Half. That is a fundamentally different vision of what an office is.
It is, and if you connect that to the bigger projections, that's where you see the magnitude of this and, the uncertainty. On the low end, you have an estimate from Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
They're saying maybe 6% to 7% of the U.S. workforce. They do sort of suggest, that it might be temporary, that new jobs will be created. That's the optimistic take.
The optimistic take. But that's getting a lot harder to believe when you look at some of the other projections, the McKinsey Global Institute, for instance.
They're far more aggressive.
Far more. They estimate 40% of American jobs could be displaced by automation by 2030.
40%. Almost half of all jobs.
And they're specific. They say it involves automating more than half of all U.S. work hours. That's manual and cognitive, knowledge-based work.
And if you zoom out globally, the World Economic Forum is projecting 92 million jobs worldwide gone by 2026, which is, that's basically tomorrow.
It's just around the corner.
What's fascinating is where the hit is coming first. Scott Galloway predicted this years ago. He said AI would hit middle management first.
Because it's repetitive work, just in an office. Synthesizing information, formatting reports, passing it up the chain.
Precisely. And we're already seeing a 6% drop in managers at public companies just since 2022. It's happening.
This whole wave, this entire conversation was predicted with, frankly, remarkable accuracy years ago by Andrew Yang.
He was sounding the alarm, 7 years ago? And at the time, he was just focusing on self-driving trucks?
Just that one thing. He said, look, we have 1 million truck drivers. It's a huge workforce, 94% male, mostly high school education. A solid middle-class job.
And taking that one job category out would destabilize huge parts of the country. He argued it would then just spread. Retail, call centers, insurance, accounting.
He wasn't just throwing out numbers, though. He categorized it. And this is the statistic that I think should really stick with you. Yang's core number is that 44% of American jobs are either repetitive manual or repetitive cognitive.
Which is just another way of saying they're vulnerable to automation.
Exactly. Nearly half of the entire American job structure. If your job is doing the same thing over and over, whether that's lifting a box or filling out a form,
An AI or a robot is coming for it. And when you talk about 44% of the labor market being at risk, the conversation has to change. It's not about economic development anymore.
no, it's about social stability.
Right.
Which brings us directly to the policy solution he was championing. If 30 or 40 million people are about to be displaced, how does society even function?
And that's where universal basic income comes roaring back into the conversation. His proposal, the freedom dividend, was so simple. $1,000 a month.
For every American adult.
Every adult. No work requirements, no means testing, just a floor. A foundation so people can pay their basic bills while they try to adapt to this completely new world.
And the thing is, we don't have to talk about this in theory anymore. We have a real-world test case to look at. A microcosm. Cook County, Illinois.
Which includes Chicago.
Right. They just made their guaranteed income pilot permanent.
Yeah.
They've committed $7.5 million for it in their 2026 budget proposal.
This was after a 2-year pilot program. They gave $500 a month to 3,200 households. And the results they published were, well, they were incredibly positive.
They were overwhelming. On the recipient side, at least, you had 94% of people using the money for financial emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
The car breaks down, the kid gets sick.
Things that can spiral into a huge crisis for a family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
75% said they felt more financially secure. And maybe the biggest number, 70%, reported a positive impact on their mental health. It just gave them breathing room, peace of mind.
And that peace of mind, that's the aha moment for UBI supporters, isn't it? That a small, stable amount of money can just drastically improve people's lives. But, and this is a huge but.
This is where it gets complicated.
This is where the policy runs into a brick wall. You have to ask, where did Cook County get the money?
And the funding source is the problem. It's tied to property taxes, which have gone through the roof.
Right, because commercial real estate values in cities like Chicago have tanked since the pandemic, so that massive tax burden gets shifted onto homeowners.
And the numbers are just brutal. Property taxes in Chicago are up 16.7%. That's the biggest jump in 30 years. But in some neighborhoods, West Garfield Park, a 133% tax increase.
North Lawndale, 99%. Inglewood, 82.5%.
It's astronomical. So you have this political paradox. A program that works, that helps people, is being funded by these community-stabilizing tax hikes on other people.
You're asking one group to pay a totally unbearable price for a solution to a national technological problem. It's not sustainable. And the opposition, of course, is immediate.
What are they saying?
Well, you have groups like the Illinois Policy Institute calling it a failed strategy, and they bring up the old argument that guaranteed income might make people work less, hurt their long-term earnings.
So if local property taxes aren't the answer for a national program, that brings us to the macro solution. Taxing the winners.
Tax the AI revolution itself, which was Andrew Yang's original proposal.
And you're actually seeing some surprising support for this idea, right?
You are. The CEO of Anthropic, a huge AI firm, he actually said, you guys should tax us, the AI firms.
Oh.
And Yang's argument is that these companies are making hundreds of billions of dollars using data that the public gave them for free without knowing it. He says a tax on that could yield very big numbers.
That seems logical. Tax the source of the disruption to pay for the solution. But then you run into another financial problem. Market concentration.
The Magnificent Seven.
Exactly. The entire stock market's stability feels like it's resting on, 7 giant tech companies? Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, NVIDIA.
It creates this incredible fragility. Analysts now talk about the S&P 500 versus the S&P 493. The market looks very different if you take those 7 companies out.
So the big question is, what happens if that tech bubble bursts?
Right. If you tie all your social safety net funding to a tax on these super volatile tech stocks, what happens when there's a correction?
It seems like you're building a house on a very shaky foundation.
Well, Yang has a counter-argument for that. He says, don't look at the companies, look at the country's total wealth. U.S. GDP is about $85,000 per person, and it's trending up.
So his argument is, if the nation is generating that much wealth per person, then giving each person $12,000 a year, the $1,000 a month, is actually pretty modest and reasonable.
It's affordable based on our overall national wealth, not just the fortunes of a few tech firms. That's the argument for its stability.
Okay, so that's the financial debate. But then there's the philosophical one. As soon as you say you're going to send checks to everyone with no work requirement, people immediately shout, socialism.
It's the reflexive label.
So how does Yang frame it? How does he fit UBI into the American economy?
He completely rejects the socialist label. His line is famous now. It's capitalism where income doesn't start at zero.
Okay.
His argument is purely practical. It's about keeping the market going. The economy needs consumers, right? If AI shoves millions of Americans to the curb, they can't buy things.
If they can't buy things, the whole consumer economy grinds to a halt, and you get massive social problems.
Exactly.
Right.
Widespread joblessness leads to despair. People staying home, feeling useless, maybe getting radicalized because they feel the system left them behind. UBI, in his view, is a stability payment for capitalism itself.
There's another benefit too, right? The bureaucratic cleanup. You mentioned a really poignant example of a disabled woman who was afraid to volunteer.
Yeah, she was afraid to volunteer in her own community because she thought earning even a little bit of money or being seen as able to work could risk her disability payments.
Which are incredibly complex and conditional.
Terribly complex. Our current welfare systems can trap people. UBI, because it's unconditional, could free people up to contribute in other ways. Volunteering, retraining, caring for a family member without that constant fear of losing their only lifeline.
It creates a floor, a level of security that just doesn't exist for those 44% of people whose jobs are at risk.
Okay, before we wrap this up, let's just go back to the scale of the threat. Yang doesn't think we're headed for 99% unemployment.
No, he rejects that.
Yeah.
But he is very clear that it's going to get bad. His realistic estimate, he takes that 44% of jobs that are susceptible, and he says, what if we churn through just half of them in the next 10 years?
Okay.
That puts the job elimination figure at 30 to 40 million jobs.
30 to 40 million. That's a catastrophic number. It's the biggest economic disruption since the Great Depression, but squeezed into a decade. And that is the raw, unvarnished problem that UBI is designed to solve. It's not about wealth redistribution for the sake of it. It's about a parachute for a workforce that is facing an unprecedented collapse.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We've laid out the, frankly, terrifying and imminent scale of job displacement. We're talking 30 to 40 million jobs, a massive need for some kind of foundational solution.
But we've also seen the huge political and economic hurdles. Just look at the Cook County experience. A solution that works for recipients is destabilizing the tax base that it depends on. The challenge is finding a way to fund this nationally without just creating a new crisis.
And here's the final thought we want to leave you with. Andrew Yang himself, UBI's biggest champion, has said that money is not a silver bullet. UBI might solve the financial problem of losing your job, but it doesn't automatically give you what a job often does.
It doesn't give you structure or purpose or a sense of fulfillment. It doesn't give you community.
So if automation handles the economics of survival for us, the deeper question is, how do we as a society intentionally replace those things? How do we build a society of purpose when work is no longer the central organizing principle of life?
That is the real deep dive awaiting all of us.
An essential question for the age of AI. Thanks for joining us.